Hi all. I wanted to announce one more quick change to the channel because I'm still a bit overwhelmed by the response to the Johnny Harris video and the support from Jake Bro. I want to take a second to reassure you that I'm gonna push myself a bit harder to make sure that everything I say to you, to the best of my ability, is accurate. You know, when you have no subscribers and no views and you're just sitting there chatting into the void, it doesn't matter that much what you gotta say, right? You're just logging your thoughts and your opinions, and maybe you think you might actually look at them again later or remind yourself what you were thinking at some time, and it just doesn't matter that much. But I do take it seriously that if there's more people subscribing and watching this channel, that I don't mislead anybody if I can help it. So I'm going to make an effort to publish an occasional video with corrections. I'll also make an effort to review the material in my videos as I'm cutting it and to avoid leaving stuff in that I think isn't accurate. For today, I have two corrections that I would like to make. One, I incorrectly stated that NATO was not formed primarily to defend against Russia. That's not true. When NATO was formed, the Soviet Union had already been expanding, and NATO was clearly, as its primary purpose, a bulwark against that expansion. But I also stand by the statement that overall, NATO's purpose did change after the end of the Cold War, and that there was a key realization that NATO had also secured peace in Europe for the longest uninterrupted period of peace in history in Europe. And it's still accurate to say that NATO has remained defensive. It's not a tool that the US or any other country could use to attack another country at will. NATO did not play a role in most of the United States' military adventures. It wasn't involved in the Korean War, wasn't involved in the Vietnam War, and didn't attack Iraq. And also, NATO hasn't been that much involved in the US's efforts to counter Russian influence around the world in recent decades. For example, NATO wasn't really involved in the Arab Spring, or when the Obama administration was trying to reduce Putin's influence in Syria. It also hasn't been involved in much of the other jostling between the US and Russia in the Middle East and Africa in recent decades. But on the other hand, NATO expansion in the interest of stabilizing Europe is a very real concept. And also the idea that quite a bit of stuff that happened after the fall of the Soviet Union, before the rise of Putin, wasn't really about Russia. And by the way, if you want to know more about that perspective, I encourage you to listen to the podcast by Mark Galeotti called In Moscow's Shadows. He's really one of the absolute experts on foreign policy between the West and Russia. He made his life out of teaching English students the Russian perspective and going to Russia and teaching at Moscow the Western point of view. And he seemed very active in helping all of us understand each other right up until the invasion. At one point, I took the time to listen to every single one of his episodes that he'd made from 2019 to the time of the Russian invasion and up to the death of Alexei Navalny. And he occasionally mentions that Russia might have a tendency to interpret things to be about Russia that actually aren't. But if you listen to those old episodes, you might also notice another thing. He made quite a few predictions to the effect that Russia would behave rationally, or to restrain itself, not to attack Ukraine, to try to negotiate for something, although he wasn't entirely sure what it might be, that Alexei Navalny wouldn't be imprisoned, that Putin probably wasn't involved in the poisoning of Alexei Navalny, that Alexei Navalny probably wouldn't be arrested when he re-entered Russia, and certainly that Alexei Navalny would be safe if he had to spend any symbolic amount of time in prison. On all of those predictions, he has been wrong. So if you hear predictions from someone like him, that there will be some kind of rational end to the war in Ukraine, be very, very careful before you decide to believe it. Finally, I'll make another quick correction. In a video about corporate tax that I published as a preview snippet for another video I already made, but that I'm still having to edit, and it's going to take a while, I was sort of musing at the end that the public doesn't benefit enough from general economic growth if corporate taxes are too low. That's definitely not quite nailing it. Lower corporate taxes can definitely have a positive effect by attracting more companies to an economy. However, the problem is that it makes it difficult for the nation to make a strategic investment, a geopolitical investment that maybe benefits one sector more than others. A sector like energy exports, or vehicle exports, or even food. That's where you might get a situation where only some people or companies benefit from that investment, while other people are footing the bill. And I know I still owe you that deep dive, so it's going to come up soon. And overall, like I said, I'm going to aim to be thoughtful, and I may produce less content if I'm taking the time to check myself more carefully. But I hope that together we can help each other understand things a bit better, and maybe a bit differently, and that we can grow also from talking to each other through comments on these videos, and I'll post more videos in response to specific questions or feedbacks or input, and I'll learn something from you. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.